I kind of want to unpack the brand, both the Trufan and the player brand, and then how they kind of molded in together. So I kind of want to talk about what different elements of the branding are and why those were the decisions that were made. So can you just kind of refresh everybody again what the platform is that will kind of which reinforces what decisions were made when it comes to the brand?
Sure. I mean, we started out as, fan surprises. And we acquired a company called Social Rank, which was a fantastic, social insights platform. And now we have acquired Player. And so bringing that all together, what Trufan has now is a unique platform that can really help marketers do three things. Basically, you can engage your audience and drive very specific CTAs. So if you want people to sign up for your newsletter, download your app, follow you on your platforms, it can help you do that. Second would be to understand more about your audience. So gaining audience insights and then segmenting them, finding new audiences. And those could be through many, many different ways to slice and dice audiences. And then the third one would be to be able to generate compliant and high quality first party data. That is increasingly becoming a need for a lot of marketers. And so I feel like the combined platforms are really of high value. And that's the direction that we're going in.
And so how do you position the new brand?
So there are very few direct competitors that we have. Um, there are a lot of marketers doing, social marketing basically. What they would like to do is they would like to get down to an individual in their marketing. They would like to understand the person who responded to their marketing and to be able to remarket to that person. Instead, with most of the social platforms, you're marketing to an anonymized audience, a customized audience, but you can't actually get down to what I would call social CRM. And then it's very hard to find new customers that way or to find insights. Um, we have we're positioning ourselves as a social intelligence platform, but we're also expanding into engagement to be able to collect first party data.
And so how do you kind of envision True Fan when it comes to the rebranding? How do you communicate that, right? Because you said the tone of voice is going to be a little bit edgier is kind of what we're going for, but it's also you're trying to reach kind of the C-suite, the high level marketer. So how do you balance that of not even wanting to be a full blown Wendy's on social media, but you want it to be a little bit more fun, kind of like a D2C brand. What's your approach to communicating this to the potential consumers?
Well, we're marketing to marketers. So we've got to understand what is really the opportunities and pain points right now with our customers, with our marketing customers. What are they living through? And I think just being a little bit humorous about some of the things that they're living through also helps. Maybe helping them discover some ways to do their marketing that they hadn't thought about or segment. Um, Again, going back to sort of the audience reporting, that's one of the things that we can help surface. We can help surface some high value audiences. We can help surface some stories of how some of our customers are getting to new customer segments, and hopefully inspire some of them to look at their own marketing in a different way.
And then how do you go about establishing that brand voice? Is it just kind of updating the copy? Is it changing the website? Does all the elements of the brand kind of go along with that tone of voice? Like, for example, you can write it one way, but if you write it on a blue backdrop versus red backdrop, it might come across differently. So how do you approach shaping the voice of a brand?
I mean, to establish your brand voice, you've got to create distinction with your brand by reflecting, you reflect your mission and values. That's a great start. But again, you've got to cut through the noise. And so when I look back at the way our team actually communicates, we are fun and we're empowering and bold and professional, but we're also informative and direct. And so all of those elements will be, I think, part of our brand voice going forward. We also want to be bit clever. So we also want to show our customers through our brand voice that we understand them and that we understand what they're going through. And I think being relatable in that way with our customers with clever copy while still being informative is sort of the way that we're going to test forward.
And what about the visuals? How does that kind of map back to the desired brand voice? Like, because it's a bluey purple for True Fan, correct me if I'm wrong. So like how does that map back to the tone of voice and the positioning and everything?
Well, we looked at sort of the elements that, or the emotions that those colors invoke, and they really did invoke the right kind of feelings that we were looking for, which was, sort of high energy, trustworthiness, also high quality. And so we're really looking to bring that home in the visuals. And given that, visual creative is 50% of success in marketing, it's very important that we nail a consistent and, sort of on brand color palette for us.
And kind of with that consistency, talk to me then how player fits in, like how player fits into this puzzle. Cause you don't want it to be the exact same because it's two different products, for lack of two different brands under the same roof. So how do you determine what players' colors look like? Cause it's kind of the angle I was going for is looking like they're from the same family, but they're not twins, right?
Right, right. So we did use the periwinkle blue as a consistent color between the two palettes to sort of make them look like or feel like they come from the same family. It also happens to be a color that is very predominant in gaming, I think, and felt very gamer like for that player community. They already had a very kind of high energy, bright colors that I would say fit very well with their brand. And so we didn't go too far away from what they were already doing. I think what we did very well is we married the two logos. And so, we dropped the GG from player because we hope to expand the player brand beyond gaming into sort of adjacent communities of culture, I would call it. If you look at sort of the gamer audience, there are overlaps between gaming and sports, and gaming and fashion, and gaming and beverages, and gaming and snacks, and gaming in film. And so eventually we would like to grow that gamer community out to be a little bit more around some of those adjacent communities as well. So, but while still feeling, sort of core to the cool gamer roots that it has. But we also we got rid of the console and the logo and sort of made it more unified with the True Fan heart and stars. So,
And when it comes to things like for in terms of the two brands, what else differs and what stays the same between the two rebranding? Because the values and everything between TrueFan and Play are going to be going to stay the same, but will the voice change between the two brands? Because TrueFan is going to be marketers, and so is Player, but Player is also B2C, so it has to be a little more consumer facing. So is kind of the tone of voice and things going to be different between the two brands as well?
I think the tone of voice will be very similar. It'll still be very edgy, bold, and informative, but it'll just be very in tune with that community. So the customer of that player community is a consumer gamer. And so again, everything starts and stops with the customer, right? And so the message will clearly be different. And some of the cleverness that we hope to bring into that brand voice will be very specific to that customer.
Mhm. I'm curious why Edgy is the brand voice. Like, why do you think that'll be the one that resonates with the consumer? What are some other potential options just to give the person listening this context of different other voices? Because I feel like when you look at social, a lot of brands are, especially when you think of Edgy on social, you think of Wendy's. So, what are some other potential voices, and why was Edgy the right one for True Fan?
Well, I think Edgy was the right one for TrueFan because a lot of our customers are quite innovative. When they use platforms like TrueFan, they are really testing into trying to find more out about their own customers, trying to establish new customer segments. They're really quite innovative in the way that they approach marketing and quite open. And so I feel like that edginess was appropriate because they are the person that is sort of breaking boundaries within their own brands. Um, Other potential voices that you could have, I mean, we're at the core, we're a B2B SaaS company, right? So we could have a very kind of techie, informative, very straightforward kind of performance based kind of brand marketing and voice. I think it would be we would be lost in that sea of sameness with other brands that have similar kind of tone. What we wanted to do is we wanted to be distinct. We wanted to really represent both the team that we have internally at Trufan and Player, and we also wanted to reflect our customers who are quite innovative.
Is there a point where trying to stand out goes too far? Like, how have you tried to, one, still show that you're a tech company, you're a gaming focused company, but it's also that you don't want to just be complete different for the sake of just being different. So how do you kind of balance being different and innovative, but also representing the community that you're representing?
Yeah, I think that line gets crossed when your product starts to sound clever, right? Like you want your product to be super informative, very straightforward, clear, not confusing in any way. But I think cleverness can be based on insights. So, for example, if you find an insight out about your customers, then you can really get quite clever about it. We had one customer who was a snack company, and they discovered through our platform that they had a lot of followers who had exotic birds. Turns out that the popcorn and nuts that this company was selling were quite attractive to exotic birds, and therefore a lot of bird owners were posting and following that company and posting about their birds and the snacks. That's a great example of like you lean into the customer that you have, right? And they did, and they started creating content and really sort of creating connection with that customer base through the realities of them being exotic bird owners. So, they had some fun parrot memes and they had some things that were quite fun and clever, but it showed that they understood their customer at the core of it. And so I think that's where the cleverness comes in. I think where it should stop is in your product that needs to actually deliver and be quite serious. That's where it's not as appropriate to maybe have as much cleverness. You want to be clear and informative.
And you said with it was more so with the bigger national brands where they're kind of going for a customer that they want instead of the customer that they have. In the context of Trufan or startups in general, is it better to market for the customer you want because you haven't established yourself yet, as opposed to marketing for the customer you have?
I think you have to do both at the same time. You need to embrace the customer that you have. And over time, you need to look at, if we wanted more of this kind of customer, what would we need to be in the world? What would we need to bring to the table? And is that realistic?
Okay. And does with kind of the rebrand of the company, does that trickle down to beyond just the marketing? Like, will that affect customer success? Will that affect the product? Will that just affect kind of the culture of the company as a whole?
I mean, yes, I think your marketing and your branding have an effect on your internal teams and also the way that you communicate in every part of the business. I mean, the reality is the brand is your touch point at every single part of the business, including the product. And so, we have collaborated across the business to do this rebrand. We haven't done it in a silo. Having said that, I think that it's highly reflective of who we are and who our customers are. So I feel really good about that.
So it's more so instead of having the brand trickle down and impact the company as it's organically shaped and evolved with the culture, that's kind of trickled down and is representative in the branding. So it's kind of the other way around.
It's both. It's really both. I think when you're really in touch with who you are as a company and who your customers are, your brand evolves with that. You want to be authentic, right? Like you can create the world's best brand, but if you can't stand up to that day to day, then there's usually an issue.